If you're a solo founder, I want you to think about how you spend your time this week. Really think about it. How many hours were you making product? How many were you building the brand? How many were actually moving the needle on where you want this business to go? For most of us, the answer is uncomfortable because the thing that keeps a product-based business alive, production, is also the thing that keeps it small. In this episode, I'm going to show you exactly how I'm rethinking my own time allocation and the moves I'm making to spend more of it on the work that actually grows my brand. I am Burnett King, the founder of Noble Crown Fragrances, a company dedicated to elevating your space through the power of scent. The Noble Crown podcast is here to talk about the business of building a product-based brand with lessons learned that help you reach your goals faster and better understand the industry. If you're watching on YouTube, please take a moment to subscribe. It helps the channel grow and keeps you connected to future episodes. So we're going to walk through the process of understanding where our time is actually going, what we can do to fix it and to move it towards where we want to go, and then have a little time to figure out what are some concrete next steps we can do to take those actions. So first, let's talk about my time. So I want to be honest about where I split my time and what it looks like right now. And I've done a little bit of pre-work so that way I have these numbers for you. And I want you to be objective. So try to time yourself throughout the week. You don't have to do it exactly, but you can either do it through a calendar or you can think about the different activities you do within a day and kind of total all of those things up over the course of a week. And if it's a typical week for you, then you can figure out, okay, this is about how much time I'm spending on each one of these buckets. So for me, I spend about 60% of my time on production and operations. So that's making products, packing orders, managing supplies, buying supplies, like all of that kind of thing, right? Mostly it's spent on making product, actually physically pouring product. Then I spend about 20% of my time on marketing and content. So that's social media, doing this podcast, coming up with creative ideas, paid advertisement, creative and copy and writing and things like that. Then I spend about 10% of my time on fragrance creation and business strategy. So this is research and development, new scent development, new product development, and then brand direction, planning for the year, planning for a quarter, those kind of things. Finance is about 5% of my time. So I look at reviewing my costs and my revenue, cash flow, thinking about pricing, inventory costs, looking at the P&L, so all of the kind of finance related activities. And then 5% of my time is in admin tasks. So that's, emails, scheduling, just miscellaneous stuff that kind of falls into that bucket. So here's the problem. I'm spending about 60% of my time on production when production is not my highest value work. My highest value work is actually fragrance creation and brand strategy. And right now that's only getting 10% of my time every week. So I've thought about it and I want to think about, okay, if I need to drive towards high value activities, I actually want my time to look like this. So 50% of my time should be in fragrance creation and strategy. 25% of my time should be in marketing and content. Those are the two buckets that are going up in time allocation. And then bringing down products and operations to production and operations down to about 15%. Now that's a big shift, right? From 60% to 15%. And we'll talk through how I'm going to get there. And then keep finance and admin both at 5% each. So this isn't a small shift. It's basically a complete restructure of how I show up every day. So how do I get there? There are going to be 3 specific moves. Remember, you can't build a brand if you're too busy running a production line. At some point, the founder, meaning you, has to step back from the bench. Before we move to the 3 things that I'm going to do, let me just walk you through like a week, right? So if there is, let's say 50 hours in a week, right? That's assuming you're working like 10 hours a week, 5 days a week. Trust me, I know a lot of you are working more than that. I work more than that, but 50 is a nice round number, right? So let's say I have 50 hours in a week. That means I'm spending approximately 30 hours of that week in pouring candles and pouring perfumes. That actually seems pretty accurate to me for what I'm doing. And then, I'm spending 20%. So that is 10 hours on social media, coming up with Instagram posts, coming up with reels and TikToks, coming up with podcast scripts and recording the podcast and editing, that sounds about right to me as well. So you can understand that those are my current two biggest buckets. And then I'm spending very little time on fragrance creation. Now, this varies from week to week, right? If I have a launch coming up and I'm working on new products or new scents, then obviously those time allocations get higher. But if that's only 10% of my average week, that's 5 hours a week. And that actually seems higher than what I'm typically spending. I would love to be spending way more time doing that. So think about, again, try to calculate what activities you're doing within a week. So list them all out. And then how much time are you spending in the week to figure out what that is and whether or not they're high value or low value, and then how you want to adjust them and move towards a different time allocation in the future. All right, move number 1, hiring a production assistant. So I need to offload the work that doesn't actually require me, right? So one area I've already done this in is finance, right? So I don't do my own books. I started out doing my own books and it just ate up a ton of time. And it's not something that I'm particularly great at or that I enjoy doing. And so I quickly understood that I need to hire an accountant, a CPA, who does my books for me, right? So why can't I do the same thing with production? So the single biggest lever I can pull in getting production off my plate is actually hiring someone, right? I still want to oversee quality and be involved in new formula testing, right? So I'm never going to get out of the production piece or the operations piece, but the routine work, so like pouring, cleaning, labeling, packing, restocking, that doesn't really require me as a founder. It requires just a capable person with a clear system. So I might need to spend some extra time training them and writing up documentation and making sure that I have standard operating procedures documented. So if I can't explain that process clearly, then I can't hand it off cleanly to somebody. So that will be the first step. But then I also need to identify which production tasks are repeatable and trainable. So those will be the first ones that I, hand off to a production assistant because they're very routine. It's not, kind of breaking the normal schedule or the normal process. Those are the things that you want to hand off first. So think about what one part-time person could unlock for you, even if it's like 10 hours a week, right? Even if it's 10 hours a week of production support, that can free up a significant amount of your founder time. The hire basically pays for itself when the time is freed up to go towards revenue generating work, right? So either better marketing, new products, consistent launches, even spending more time on marketing activities like social media might be able to generate more revenue as opposed to production, which, hey, that has to happen no matter what. And it's not necessarily generating new revenue for you. My suggestion is to start small. So a production assistant who comes in a few days a week is very different than a full-time employee, right? There's lower risk, lower cost, but you get real impact out of that person. So you don't have to hire someone full-time to change your business. You just have to be willing to let go of the tasks that are keeping you from doing your best work in high-value areas. So for me, like I said, I would hire someone to work on cleaning. So I spend so much time cleaning jars, right? So that's whether it's cleaning out candle jars, washing out perfume bottles, labeling. Packing orders is another huge thing, right? So as I get orders, I pack them all myself individually. And that is something that is easily trainable. Basically, there's one very similar process. I sell a lot of the same product over and over and over again. So it becomes easily repeatable and something that's easily trainable. Those would save me the most time. It's really like cleaning and prep work, at labeling, and then shipping orders and packing orders. So think about within that production or operation space, if that's where you want to save time. Think about what are the biggest chunks that are easily repeatable for somebody. You can train them on it, but it would also save you a bunch of time by not having to do them anymore yourself. All right, move number 2 is to use AI to actually amplify your marketing and your content. So I would say I'm always trying to work smarter with the tools that are available to me, right? And AI is a wild space. There's a lot of different AI companies and a lot of different tools out there. And you have to figure out which ones are going to be best for you and actually save you time rather than spending a bunch of time researching and going down rabbit holes that aren't going to save you a lot of time. But for me, I want to up my marketing time, right, from 20% to about 25%. but I don't want to just spend more time on marketing. I actually want them to be more, those hours to be more efficient and to produce more. And so that's where AI is going to come in to help me, right? So AI can dramatically speed up the writing process. So this is captions, product descriptions, emails, podcast outlines, without necessarily replacing your voice or your strategy. If you're finding the right tool, you will be able to get it to sound like you, right? Because you can give it information, you can give it written documents that are already in your voice, and it will adapt your tone. Think of AI as like the first draft engine, right? So you still bring the ideas, you bring the brand knowledge and the editorial eye to it, but AI is removing that blank page, right? When you just need to get started and get something down on a page, AI can help you do that. One of the biggest things that I need to leverage, right, that I'm not currently doing is content repurposing, right? So, for example, I could take this podcast episode that you're listening to right now and let AI turn it into captions, shorter clips that I can post, like a YouTube short or an Instagram reel, turn it into email copy, blog posts, product page language, right? Like all of those things. I already have a bunch of content written, so why can't I have AI actually repurpose some of that for me? AI can also help you with audience research, right? So what questions are people asking? And then how can I address them through my content or my marketing? What are topics that are trending in your particular space? So for me, in fragrances or small business space, right? Use that information and that research to inform your content calendar. So that way you already have things planned out, right? For me, the biggest hurdle is not knowing what to post on social media and not always having something mapped out. Like I do this well for email, like I have my whole email calendar planned out for the year, but for social media, it becomes a lot harder, especially if you're posting frequently. So use AI to kind of generate topics for you ahead of time and then plan out that calendar. That alone will make your process more efficient. And then that time that you save in planning things out can actually go into building better quality content, right? So if you need to shoot more video and you need to like redo things, or you need to have better lighting, or you need to do better editing on the back end, right? Like you save time because all of that strategic like writing and planning work is already done up front. So AI doesn't necessarily replace your creativity, right? It just removes the friction between your ideas and the screen. The strategy still has to come from you. So let's go into some specific AI tools that I've been exploring or using. So I started using ChatGPT a really long time ago, and I've actually just changed to Claude, and I use that for writing. So podcast outlines, right? This outline for this episode, I actually generated using AI. Now, I I interject with my own stories, obviously. It's not going to write all of this out for me. And I also want the podcast to come across naturally, like we're having a conversation. But AI is going to at least generate the flow of the episode for me. So I'm not spending hours just trying to come up with the outline and the ideas and the stories, right? I am able to kind of do all of that work very quickly. And then I can direct the episode as to how I want it to go when I'm actually speaking to you. So that's just one example, right? It's kind of using kind of the chat tools that are out there in AI to do some of the writing for me. I also use I think it's Kive. I don't know how you pronounce it. It's Kive, KIVE.ai. I use that for some of my advertising content, right? So when I'm generating images or videos for ads, I found that certain tools are better than others, but find a tool that works for your brand voice and your brand tone, and then use that to help you generate ideas, even if it's just a starting point, right? If it's a jumping off point, those are the kind of tools that I like to use because it saves me a ton of time up front, and then I can perfect it and tweak it later. All right, and move number 3, I'm actually going to use AI to accelerate fragrance creation and strategy. And you're thinking, that's a little crazy, right? If you want to spend more of your time on fragrance creation, why would you use AI to help with that, or strategy work to help with that, when that's a very like personal human thing that you need to do? So I'll explain it to you. You want to bring more intentionality and efficiency to your highest value work. So it's not just about spending more hours on your highest value work. It's actually about being as efficient as possible in that highest value work. So the core of my business, right? The core of what I do is fragrance and creating fragrances. It's what makes our product very different from our other brands that are out there. And right now it's only getting 10% of my week. So how can AI help me get there faster? First, research. So we talked about this in the last section, but research phase of fragrance creation. So this is pulling information on ingredients, right? So if I have a concept built, right, that's typically how I start. And you guys should check out literally my last episode on how I build a fragrance from start to finish. But you start with a concept. And so having that concept written down and understanding what it's about and who it's for, if you put that into a good AI tool that already kind of knows your tone and your brand, then it can help you with ingredient selection or fragrance selection or bases, or even for new products, right? What oil should I be using? What bottles should I be using? What are other brands doing, right? So thinking about competitor scent families. Before you ever touch any supplies, you can use AI to help you do a lot of research up front. Concept development. So typically I already have a really well fleshed out concept. I don't use AI for this a ton, but if you are, again, starting from that blank page, you can give a mood or season, whatever your inspiration starting point is, have AI take that and give you some briefs, right? Some creative briefs, naming ideas, descriptive language, potential directions to take a very like small idea of a concept. You can take that a bunch of different ways, and AI can kind of do some brainstorming with you. Obviously, AI is not going to replace my nose or the testing process, but it can actually compress the pre-testing work that eats into a bunch of the creative time, right? It's about organization and efficiency, less so about replacing you as a human, right? On the strategy side, AI can help you actually map out your product roadmap, what scents you already currently have, what scent categories are currently selling well for you and maybe that you want to expand upon. Launch timing. So I use this all the time, right? I do work back schedules. So if I know I need to launch by this date, or I really want to launch, for example, I have summer fragrances coming out. If I want to launch those by middle of May, middle of June, whatever it is, I can walk back from that, and AI can help me figure out, okay, well, these are all the activities that you need to do, or this is typically how you launch. So here's everything that you need to do. Here's a checklist, and it will create a checklist with the timing and making sure that you have enough time built in to actually successfully hit your goal, right? Those are the kind of things that you have to do anyway for every single launch. So why not have some help doing it? And again, it takes time away from building out that launch plan and putting it more into the creative process. That's where you want to spend your high value time. The goal isn't to automate creativity, is to remove like the administrative tasks and drags around that creativity so you can spend more time on creating. Your nose can't be automated or whatever business you're in, right? Like certain things cannot be automated, but the research, the planning, the documentation around it, all of that can be automated. All of that can be assisted, and that will free up your creative time for what you can and what you want to do. All right. So in closing, time is the one resource you can't make more of, but you can be more intentional about where it goes. The version of Noble Crown that I'm trying to build requires a founder who is thinking, creating, strategizing, not one who's spending all of his time at the production bench, right? Or the production table. So let's recap the 3 moves that I'm personally going to use, and you can figure out how you can adapt these as well. So hiring a production assistant, right? Getting somebody to essentially offload some of the repeatable, trainable work, get that off of your plate. And then my time, your time is freed up for higher value work. Using AI for marketing and content. This is the way most people are going to use AI nowadays. It's the low hanging fruit, so to speak. You can amplify what you produce without just adding more hours and time into marketing and content. And then for me, right, think about what strategy or like fundamental piece of your business is there, what that core is. For me, that's fragrance creation, but for you, that might be something else. How can you compress all of the admin tasks around that creative process and speed that up or offload that to AI so that way you can spend more time on the creative and the strategic work? So your homework this week, map out your time and document it honestly. Write down what percentage of a week goes to each of those areas of your business, and then ask yourself, is that the split that I want? Or is that just what, keeps the business running currently? And then once you have that time allocation, I want you to think about where you want it to go, what do you want it to look like to ideally scale your business, and then start thinking about some solutions to help you get there. So as always, if you're watching on YouTube, please like and subscribe. It helps spread the joy of fragrance and supports fellow entrepreneurs. If you'd like to explore any of the fragrance products that I create, you can always visit noblecrown.shop. Thank you for listening, and I'll see you in the next episode.